Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're looking at more Morimens. I have a new team composition for you and I think that you'll like this one. It's pretty fun. So the Awakeners that we have here, the three most important are Sanga, Saya, and Aurita. You can swap Thais out with basically anything that you want, but it's important for that fourth character to be able to generate Key Flare. So that's just something to keep in mind. Aurita is our main damage dealer. She deals damage based off of Gland Division. The more that you play it, the more copies you get in your deck, and then her Exalt can consume those copies to deal increasing amounts of damage. And each time that you use her Exalt, it increases the damage that you'll deal the next time you use her Exalt. Her Rouse card also lets her deal damage with a Tentacle every time that she attacks, and that has a lot of synergy with Tranquil Seas because it allows us to stack shield by just dealing damage with her. So that provides us an extra way to get defenses. We also have Sanga, and she provides most of our defenses, and she's really good in a build like this. Because we're going to be going into Tranquil Sea so often just to get extra shield, her Beauty's Mercy is really nice for us because it generates tentacles, and otherwise we're not going to be able to do that because we won't be in Surging Tides very often. So having a way to get shield and then also generate a tentacle is really good for this build. She also can deal damage, AoE damage, based on the amount of shield we have, and like I said, we're going to be going into Tranquil Sea almost all the time, so that should end up being a lot of damage. Then our other two Awakeners, we've got Thais and Saya. Thais' Exalt allows us to get copies of cards in our hand, so we're going to try to get copies of Aurita's card. I forgot the name of it already, even though I just saw it. Let me go back and look. Gland Division. So we're going to try to get copies of Gland Division with Thais, and that's why she's in there. She also is able to provide weakness and vulnerability if we need it. So those are useful things, but for the most part, we're just after her Exalt. And Saya is in a similar boat, but slightly different. So her Exalt gives us a lot of shield, which is something that's really good for us. It also generates copies of one Awakener's set, like the entire set of cards, and it'll generate 2 copies, one into the deck, one into the discard pile. And of course, doing that gives us extra copies of Gland Division, which is what we're after. On top of that, we're going to have to draw the Gland Divisions to actually play them, and Aurita gives us a way to discard cards and draw new cards. So we discard our hand and we draw a new hand. And that's really helpful for making sure that we have the Gland Divisions that we need. Well, Saya does the same thing with her Viscera Blossoms, and she applies Corrosion to enemies, which is going to amplify the damage that Aurita is doing. So we really like having that. And then the other thing that she does, her Rouse card, it gives, basically if we play a card with Perception Warp, we get Elimus to both her and the Awakener that played it. And because most of our deck is going to consist of Aurita's cards, that should help us get enough Elimus for Aurita to use her Exalt. Now, how do you get Perception Warp on cards? You have to use Crimson Furnace. She changes the way that the Crimson Furnace works. I'm not going to read it out to you. If you want to know, you can Google it. But basically, she provides a lot of buffs to things. She provides extra corruption. Is it corruption? Extra corrosion. She provides extra corrosion, and then she amplifies Crimson Furnace and changes some other stuff. But that's not really important. The only thing that you need to know is that the Crimson Furnace applies Perception Warp to cards. Perception Warp is a good thing because it gives us extra Elimus. If you can't tell what the card says, you're going to want to play Sanga's cards first, and then play Aurita's cards first, or second. Reason why is because we need to survive, so once we are not taking damage, then we just want to deal damage, which is why we play Aurita's cards. Saya's and Thais' cards don't matter as much for our build. And then the Posse that we have here is for the New World. It gains a shield, it draws us 2 skill cards, which we like. It gives them Perception Warp, which we like because that means extra Elimus, and we gain 1 stack of Saya's buff, which amplifies her Exalt. So everything that we have going on here, we really like. I'll put a list of the wheels in the description if you're interested, but it is basically the recommended wheels for the characters. So that's everything. Now let's go ahead and take a look at this team in action. So one thing to note about what's going on here, just so that you can get an idea of how the team would, react in a normal combat. So one of the relics that we have, it allows us to draw cards, and it gives us extra arithmetica. So those are some pretty big buffs. I don't think that they drastically affect the way that the battle plays out in this case, because our enemy is filling our deck with status cards. So drawing extra cards and having extra Limus, it basically counteracts that. The other thing is that because this is Saya's event, we're going to get Perception Warp on cards a lot more often than we would normally. Basically, if we play a card, a different card gains Perception Warp, which is why my entire hand looks unreadable at the current moment. But the benefit of that is that every time we play one of those cards, we gain a Limus to both Saya and the Awakener that the card belonged to, which means that we're going to be exalting a little bit more often than we normally would. And something else that I forgot to tell you, the embryos, they got changed, and, well, basically they changed because of Saya. They're not, like, the base is still normal, but Saya changes the Karo realm, so these embryos don't give us any crit buffs anymore. Instead, they provide a buff to the Awakener that you use them on, and that buff increases damage and all sorts of stuff like that. And as far as Keyflare rouses go, you want Saya's first, and then you want Aurita's second. And after that, you probably want to go Sanga's, but you can go Thais. It's just up to you. If you go with Sanga, you're going to scale a little bit harder, and you're going to get a little bit more defense. If you go with Thais, she will amplify the abilities of your embryos, but it only works for Thais if you're using your Posse. So if you're not going to do that, and you're just going to try to Keyflare rouse Sanga, then your best bet is to go with Sanga first and then do Thais. And there are also some times when you will want to do the Raging Waves stance, particularly if the enemy has a lot of stacks of prayer, or if you're trying to just kill them right away. So there is Saya's ult, which gives us a whole bunch of copies of Aurita's cards. So here is Aurita's Exalt with the Raging Waves. And as you can see, it deals a lot of damage. And so this is where we get to see Sanga's ability really shine. Not this turn, but the next turn. But because Sanga's Exalt is an AoE attack based off of her shield, it can scale really high and deal unexpectedly high amounts of damage. Especially when you combine it with the fact that we can apply corrosion. I believe that her damage is also amplified if you're in boss battles. It hits like twice or something. But yeah, it just instantly wiped the field. Sanga's Exalt did. And I had other things that I could have done. You saw I had all the Awakeners had their Exalts, so it was going to be a pretty hectic turn anyway. But that just, I was actually, like, that caught me off guard. I was not expecting it to one-shot the enemies. But yep, there you go. That is the team, and that's how it works. I think it's pretty good. It's definitely a lot better than the previous version of this team I had set up, which was this. This team, this variation of it, does not have very much healing, which we get thanks to the Karo realm. And this team did not shield well enough. So having this team just worked out a heck of a lot better. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section. If you have a team or a character that you want me to cover in the next video, let me know. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.